As you will hopefully know by now, if you've seen other episodes, this segment of the podcast is all about wisdom worth sharing. At the end of every interview, I'll look back as part of the editing process and discover some of the gems that came out during the conversation and summarize them here. The title of this episode is The Long Game. Angie said that she was in politics for the long game, but she also was very clear that she's been in the long game of change when it comes to reducing or eradicating family violence. She has worked since being a teenager in this area and in fact made up her mind as a 7-year-old that she would stand up and fight against violence in the home. This was one life's work interview where the interviewee could literally talk about their life's work because that is what it was. Often we find ourselves going down a certain path later in life because of both conscious and unconscious connections and decisions that have influenced us along the way. For Angie, her whole life so far has been dedicated to making a difference in this area. And there's not many people who can say that about their choices, their decisions, and their actions. Angie's speak for themselves. She has and continues to do real good work and make a difference in this area. I enjoyed this interview so much, and clearly it was down to the interviewee. Angie is one of the nicest people you could ever wish to meet. She is absolutely passionate, enthusiastic, and committed in a big way to the causes that are important to her. And there are several, including reducing family violence, the environment, and being a good parent for her children. It wasn't intentional, but the entire interview was on the subject of family violence, or domestic violence as it used to be called. Despite being so passionate due to her own experiences of family violence, both firsthand as a result of being beaten as a child, as well as in her work career being exposed to so many cases, she remains down-to-earth, articulate, and reasoned in her pursuit for settling for nothing less than significant change in New Zealand society. Something that can't be said for others trying to bring about change that they want to see, including other politicians. We need more Angies in the world. People who can talk, be passionate, forthright and to the point, but do so in a way that's conducive to not switching other people off. Angie talked about the choices men make. It's mainly men who commit family violence. There's no getting away from that. We need to own it. And when I say we, all men need to play a role. Those who commit violent acts are in the minority, thankfully. But if the majority remains silent and don't get involved, we're missing a great opportunity to positively influence those in our communities that still think that this is okay. What Angie said was that when we inflict violence, we are making a choice and we simply need to choose differently. I questioned this during the interview because to me it didn't seem that simple. When we know that we are creatures of our environment and we become like those that we hang around with, therefore we can grow up with violence and it become a part of our DNA, epigenetics they call it. It can be ingrained, so much so that there's no gap between stimulus and response. Something happens or something is said, and then bam, they lash out. A bit like when Angie's father saw her pulling a Remembrance Day poppy apart. It's because of this I questioned whether it was a choice or whether it was a reaction, learned behavior that's now become automatic. That's how our brains work. As a way of saving energy, it learns something and then creates a neural pathway so we don't have to think about it. A bit like lifting a drink to our mouth. We don't think about it, we just do it. However, I was getting hung up on the mechanics of the brain function and not focused on the bigger picture at play. What Angie made me realize was that if we inflict violence, we witness the hurt and the damage we cause, and then don't do anything to change our neural pathway, that's the choice we're making right there. Choosing not to learn how to change the pathway. Angie's dad had inflicted violence on her as a child, and she talked openly about that. She was hopeful that her father didn't mind her talking about this, and I'm hopeful too, because without being willing to share stories like that, nothing will ever change. Angie's father should be proud, and I'm sure he is, of Angie's work and her achievements, but also he should be proud of himself. He made the choice to change and did so. That takes guts, to be open to criticism, admitting that you're wrong, and having fear about change, as we all do. He had to be vulnerable in order to make that change, and that takes effort. And it takes the support of people around you, and often of people that you may never have met yet. The key is find the help and support you need. It's available. But you have to want to change badly enough to take the steps in the right direction. There's support out there for men who feel that they could harm loved ones. And if they want to contact anyone, hey Wakatapu on 0800 439 276. Or if you're a victim of family violence and you need help, you can call Shine on 0508 744 633. There are many organisations that can help. These are just two. But the main thing is you have to want to change and do something about it. Whichever the side of the issue that you're on, you're not alone. Get the help you need. The last point I want to make about Angie's interview is actually twofold. The first is, if we're not careful, we're at risk of becoming like other countries where violent actions towards politicians occurs frequently. Angie told us of how she's seen an increase in verbal abuse and even had vehicles driven at her. Now, we can't behave like this. We can't claim that we want freedom of speech and then take actions that lead to a reduction of democracy. If our politicians don't feel safe, they'll stand down and leave. There's not many of us that would want that job. We should be grateful for those that do. Yes, we should be able to express ourselves, but we need to make it about policy, not people. And I think that's all the more reason politics in our country needs to be less about personalities and more about policy and the changes that we want and need to see for our society. It's a nice segue into my second point. I believe that politicians could and should be leading the way when it comes to acts of civility. The term opposition subconsciously leads to opposing parties pushing back on anything and everything. We need a parliament where politicians, no matter what side of the fence they sit, are more willing to work together on key issues that we all need to see change. Family violence is one of those, of course. Wouldn't it be nice if they were able to agree more, work together more, and actually bring about significant change? I saw a post online from Angie. She'd wished Todd Muller all the best for the future after his decision to stand down at the next election. She said they had a good working relationship. And irrespective of our political persuasion, I think we all need to see more of that. Hopefully, you've been able to take many insights away from the interview that you can apply to some aspects of your own life, work, and legacy. Use it, share it with others. As I always say, sharing is like teaching. Teaching helps us retain what we've learned and commit to change, which is necessary if we are to enhance our own life's work. I hope that you're happy, safe, and successful in all that you do. And remember, live a life that's a story worth retelling. I'm Steve Worsley, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Life's Work, the podcast all about wisdom worth sharing.